Okay, so to begin, I am just going to draw a little sketch of what this skirt will look like. Just a rough sketch like this. And so the top band measurement will end up being half of your waist. So I'll show you how to take that measurement and then I'll give you what mine are just so you can visualize. And then the bottom measurement of the skirt is going to be half of the widest point of your hips. So again, I'll show you how to do all these measurements. I'm just giving you a sketch of what everything we need to gather is. And then the last measurement that you need is just a rough estimate of how long you want the skirt to be from the point you want it to sit at your waist down to how long you want it to be. So to begin, we're going to start by taking the waist measurement. I'm using this flexible ruler here and mine is 27 inches. So I'm going to take half of that, which is 13.5 inches. And then next, I'm going to get the widest point of my hips. And for me, it's about 39. I'm not doing this super snug either. So that half of that is 19.5 inches. And then the last one is a rough estimate of how long you want the skirt to be. So starting at the top, going down, I would definitely overestimate here because you can always take away. So I am doing 15 inches on me. And then, so here is what you end up with. Just doing that sketch again. So the top, I have 13.5, the bottom, 19.5, and the side is 15. Now, these are your exact measurements, but we need to add seam allowance, which is just the extra length past your seam that you need to account for. So I am just going to do a rough estimate. You always want to add more than too little, so you can always take away, like I said. So I'm adding half an inch to all of these. So 14, 20, and 15.5. And this will be my final dimensions with my seam allowance added. So I'm using this stretchy jersey knit fabric from Fabric Wholesale Direct. They have a great selection. You can see I don't need a lot of fabric here. It's actually some scraps that I had. So this is a great project to practice on with a little bit of fabric. I am using my Tailor's Chalk, super cheap on Amazon, and this will help me sketch out my pattern. So with the fabric folded in half, so I have 2 layers, I'm marking that bottom 20.5 inches. And that will be the bottom of the skirt. Next, I'm going to take the height. So mine was 15 inches. I'm going to overestimate just a little bit since this is going straight up and down rather than down the side of my hip, which has a little curve. So I'm just kind of like seeing how that looks here. And then mark your center points for the middle of your 20.5 all the way up to where the middle should be at the top. So that's just a little guide. And now I'm taking my 13.5 inches and marking those. And now I have the top band, and I'm just going to roughly eyeball the sides of the skirt. So this is just a rough sketch. It doesn't need to be crazy exact. I will keep width through most of the skirt and then kind of curve it in at the top towards my waist. And now I'm going to cut this out. I know that the chalk lines are a little tough to see, but since this fabric is stretchy and I've overestimated these measurements, you really don't have to be so exact here. That's why this is a really good beginner-friendly project. So I am cutting this out, cutting the top out. I'm using some pattern weights just to hold the bottom of the skirt in place. I use marble coasters from HomeGoods, but you can use any objects you have around your space if you don't have some pattern weights. So now, this is what I end up with. And whenever you're just eyeballing and self-drafting, I always recommend folding your piece in half and then evening out the sides. See how these came out a little uneven because I was just roughly drawing these. So I'm just gonna even this out. This again is why you always wanna overestimate your measurements when you're doing a rough self-draft especially. So I cut that excess off, and then on the other side, the waist ended up being a little bit smaller, so just trimming that off. I am definitely someone who sews with very rough measurements, and I just kind of see as I go how it all works out. So if you want to be more precise, I do recommend doing a pattern, but I find this to be more fun and less stressful. So now I have these two pieces, and when you move on to sewing, you are going to want some pins or clips. I prefer clips. Again, they are cheap from Amazon, and this is just going to hold those two layers of fabric in place. If you didn't cut them where right sides are together on your fabric, meaning the part of your fabric that you want on the outside of your skirt should be touching each other, you want to have those touching now. So I am just pinning this right sides together, well, clipping it right sides together, and I'm just doing it every, I don't know, like 4 inches or so. It doesn't need to be non-stop throughout every single point, just holding everything securely in place, and then sewing down each side of this skirt. Now I am using my Brother Airflow 1800 serger. This will help with a really nice clean finish. However, if you are new to sewing and all you have is a regular sewing machine, do not stress, you can still do this project. All you're going to want to do is set your machine to a zigzag stitch and do the same thing that I'm doing here. It doesn't need to trim off the excess like the serger does. I, for many years, just used my regular sewing machine without a serger, so that is totally fine for this project. But I have serged my seam, and now I will move on to the other side. When it comes to seam allowance, most sewing patterns will have it be 3/8 of an inch or so. Like I've done with almost everything on this project, I am just kind of eyeballing, not being super precise. I'm trimming off a little bit just to make that side seam even, but I'm really not doing a huge seam allowance because I can always cut some back later if needed. And now we are going to take 1-inch elastic and put it around your waist where you want the top of your skirt to sit. So now that I have that length and cut that to the length of my waist, I just do it around my body, but you can take the measurement and cut the elastic that way. But turn your skirt right side out and then have it laid flat on your table. Now take your elastic that you've already cut to your waist measurements, nice and stretchy here, and wrap it around so it makes a nice waistband. Be careful not to twist it, I've done that before. And then overlap it by a little bit. You can see mine's maybe 1/2 inch, 2 centimeters. And I'm just gonna do a zigzag stitch up and back to secure this in place and make a nice stretchy elastic waistband. So I'm putting it under the presser foot, and it looks like my thread came out of the needle, which is super common to happen. All you're gonna do is thread your needle and pull the thread out further than you had it before. I love this machine. This is my Brother SE2000 because it has the automatic threader, so I don't have to sit there and get it through the needle. Okay, back in action. Now we are doing a zigzag stitch. I am going forward, then now you can see I'm doing a backward zigzag stitch, and then I'll go forward again, and then I'll go backwards again. My thread does not match the elastic, which I'm not worried about because it will be hidden inside of your skirt. I have the thread color to match my fabric, which will show later. So you can see, it doesn't matter how many times you do this. I like to just do it several times to be extra confident that this will hold in place. You can see now if I tug on it, it will hold everything in place. First, let me get these little threads that I'm gonna snip out of the way. But there, everything will hold in place. Okay, now that I'm going to have where the zigzag stitches be the back, so I'm taking the halfway point from that zigzag stitch to the other side and putting that in the front middle of my skirt and lining up the top of the skirt with the top of that band and just clipping that in place. Then I'll take that zigzag stitched area of the elastic band and put it in the middle of the back of the top skirt band. Then take each side, a little thread I have to clip, forgot to clip those. Take each side and clip that over to where the side seam is of the skirt, and the other side. I'm really just taking a little bit of time to go around and clip this so it's as even as possible. You can see I kind of pull it around to make the elastic and fabric be as even, because sometimes it can be easy to have the elastic pulling one way or another. So take your time. These type of things, they can be a little tedious, but I find if you start with the halfway points of the front, back, and two sides of the skirt like I have done, it makes it easier to get these center points, and then everything should be pretty evenly distributed. And it's all stretchy, so you don't have to stress too much about this. Again, that's why this is an easy project. So now we're just gonna sew around that elastic and attach it to the skirt fabric. So I am going near the top edge here, and I'm going to stick with my zigzag stitch and just go all the way around this top band. Now, you can see that I started out without guiding it with my other hand, and it kind of doesn't move super well because the elastic wants to pull. So I'm gently guiding this with my left hand in the back there. You definitely don't want to tug this too hard and make the fabric super stretched out, because that could lead to some like rippling effect. So I'm just slowly guiding this through. The zigzag stitch will make it stretch friendly so that your seam doesn't rip. That's why I'm sticking with the zigzag stitch here. And just removing your clips as you go. And over this side seam, I guided it a little bit extra because it had a little hump there to get over. But just take your time with this. And again, this will all be hidden inside of the skirt, so if your thread doesn't match or your seams don't look perfect, it's gonna be okay. And then overlap where your previous was, do a couple back stitches, and then trim your thread. And now you should look like this when it is inside out. When it's right side out, it should look like so, where the band is stitched on like that. And when you flip it up, it looks clean, and then we'll flip it again so it's hidden inside the skirt. But first I want to make sure that the fabric is secured down to the elastic. You can skip this step. I just think this will make it a lot cleaner. So when you fold it like this, the fabric is held in place more. So I'm just gonna sew this part right here just to keep that fabric laying flat. So taking it, folding the elastic away, and doing another zigzag stitch, again, just to keep the fabric laying as flat as possible so that when we wear the skirt, it's not kind of being pulled in different ways. And this will be a very similar process to what we just did, where you're gonna gently tug the fabric, not too hard, just guiding it through the machine and making sure that fabric lays flat. You can see at some points it kind of bunches up, but then I just get it all to lay flat again and gently tug it through. I am showing the full process of me going around the entire band, because you can see the different parts where I'm kind of adjusting the fabric, and there's some parts that I kind of get off track a little bit, and I just want to show that for if you are struggling with getting a nice clean straight line. It's okay, mine is not super clean and straight either, but I'm kind of wrestling with this fabric, and if that's how yours is going, then it's all going to look great still. I just wanted to show like the real process. So now I'm getting to where I started, and again, just gonna do a couple back stitches and then trim that. And now here is how it looks. It's just kind of securing that fabric more, laying flat. Right there. On the fabric side, more on the fabric side than the elastic side for that, but now we are starting to get more of a skirt. So the final step is to Actually, there's two steps. We are going to have the front, because you have more curve most likely in the back. The front will appear a little longer, so I like to fold mine in half so the seams are in the center, and then cut the front side about an inch or so shorter. And this will make it long enough in the back while being mini in the front. And it actually won't look like it's shorter in the front because of the natural curve of the body. You can do this to your liking though. If you like the way this skirt looks, you can try it on. I just noticed that mine looks a little long in the front, so I trimmed that. Now with this skirt inside out, we're going to hem it. This can be super easy. Just fold over the bottom of the skirt just a little bit. I only folded it once. It's kind of curling over, so it looks like I folded it twice, but it's just folded over once. Just a little bit. I'm not doing exact measurements, and I'm just doing a zigzag stitch all the way around. Do not tug the fabric through when you're hemming, because that will make a ripple effect. And you can see that I paused here, and I'm just going to kind of get myself together again before continuing, kind of getting all the fabric laying flat. And it's okay if this isn't an exact measurement either. It will all look great. If you are very new to sewing, having your fabric with a busy pattern like this can definitely help hide some of the imperfections. So that could be a little trick to help you get your confidence up in the beginning. And then when you go over the side seams, sometimes that little hump can be a little tough, so I just gave it a gentle tug over the side seam and then going to continue without tugging it, adjusting as needed, and going to go all the way around the bottom of the skirt. Some parts look like I'm hemming it thicker than others, but as long as I keep my needle position in the same place compared to the bottom of the hem, it won't look uneven, unless you have some big drastic parts that are so different. But as long as they're remotely close like mine are, it will look straight. Feel free to take your time with this type of thing. Hemming can be intimidating. It was definitely my least favorite thing when starting sewing, but over time, if you just take a little time and commit to doing it, it's not too bad. So now I'm getting all the way to the end and just going to overlap a couple stitches, pulling over that side seam again, a couple back stitches, and then trimming my thread. And I'll show you how that turns out. Here is how it looks on the back side. It has a nice stretch to it so it won't snap. It does have this excess fabric that you can trim if you'd like to. Some places I did better than others where it's not as long. If you do trim it though, just be really careful not to cut your actual skirt fabric, because I've done that before. So I'm just going to leave mine. It's not going to show from the outside. And here is how the skirt looks. So the band will be folded down inside of the skirt. And so when you're wearing it and when it's laying flat, you don't see any of those top seams. And it should look a little something like this, nice and clean on the outside, a nice hidden waistband on the inside. Super easy, hopefully very beginner friendly. And the hem, also hopefully beginner friendly, just with a regular sewing machine. It'll have some stretch to it as well. Didn't want to overcomplicate it, but feel free to comment if you have any questions. Here's the final look. A very quick, probably about a 1 hour project with just a little bit of fabric. And definitely follow and like this video, comment if you want to see any more like this. Thanks for watching.